Okay, well, first I want to welcome you guys back. Hopefully you had a great spring break. I know that I promised this lecture on the 22nd, but the more I thought about it, the more I hope that you guys could relax and enjoy a little bit of time off. So I thought I'd go ahead and launch this today. I know, Rachel, you've already submitted your instructional strategies design assignment. The actual due date isn't until tomorrow, so if you feel after seeing this you want to tweak it, you certainly can. Becky, I know that you haven't submitted yours at this point, so hopefully this will help you if you have some questions. So this is about your strategies design. As we talked in these several weeks, how you design your specific course is going to be determined by some specific variables. We talked about how effective online instruction is driven by several things. One primary thing is recognizing that there are different learning styles, and that the learning styles, you will only know those specific things after you have done your survey of your students, styles, and that includes, not only the technological things that they're able to do, but how they learn, and that's going to determine, whether or not they're going to be a learner that's going to require more hands-on type of instruction, or ones that can be more self-directed and more autonomous. Those things will have a great deal of weight on your assignments and how you design those. So when we look at the learning styles, we can look at a chart that kind of, and this is not going to be something you guys are not new to, since you've been teachers for a while, but when you look at learning styles and the online environment, and that's what's really specific, you have to look at each learner as an individual. So you look at the visual, the verbal, the visual, nonverbal, the auditory, verbal, tactile, and kinesthetic. Now, what's kind of cool here is that, again, I'm not about reinventing the wheel. If the wheel, looks good and it works, but they give you these specific links, like taking this online quiz. And I've talked a lot about having your students take like a prerequisite online quiz that kind of determines what type of learner they are. So this would allow them to be able to take this quiz, and you could use this, you could tweak it to your own needs, but I want to provide you with some, at least an opportunity to be able to see some questionnaires that have already been done. They also have, of course, a multiple intelligence quiz, which I don't think that is particularly appropriate in this type of environment. But I think that if you have them take the online quiz, you're going to find that will at least give you an idea of how to formulate your specific online quiz. This will not be the same as your survey or the technology survey. So remember, you're really kind of looking at three different things. You could incorporate the learning style quiz into your regular survey, but your technology survey should be separate from those two, the learning style and just basic overall, what kind of a learner do I think I am? Can I go without having my teacher tell me to do this particular task, and keep asking me if I've done it yet. So those types of things are going to be, I think, pretty important for you to know what type of learners that you are dealing with. So when you, as a teacher, design activities, they have to address the different learning styles, and they should include pacing, which is what the strategies assignment discussed. That's why I'm having you do that. You need to look at the pacing for different students. The learning style survey can tell you about almost all of your learners, and that'll determine the pacing of each assignment. So specifically, Rachel, sorry about that. I'm doing my normal maintenance. Sorry, guys. Anyway, what I noticed, Rachel, in yours, you had very specific pacing, times in there, which is great. Told me that you paid attention to the last lecture we had. You went through and adjusted specific things in your activities. By employing multiple instructional strategies, you can accommodate almost every type of learning style that your students may have. So if you're going to do, specifically like a small group work, you're going to want to group those students according to how they scored on their learning style quiz, and then how they scored on their technology quiz. Uh, the one thing to remember is that as you design courses, you require recognition of all the differences of each class and audience. So you could be teaching 6 classes, and just because you designed one class does not mean that you can apply that same type of design to the remaining 5 others. It's going to be driven by the content, it's going to be driven by the audience, and it's going to be driven by the types of learners that are in that class. So, we can't just assume that because this one worked, it's going to work for all of our students. These are a few strategies that have been utilized in online instruction. Not to say that these work for everybody. So, keep in mind that this isn't just the end of a list. This is just kind of a variety of different types of strategies. So if you think about learning contracts, I'm sure that you guys have done learning contracts, and you know that that accommodates specific educational needs to the individual. So, you can really use this type of a scenario with a very diverse audience. It's a formal agreement between you and the student, so in that respect it's going to be extremely binding, or we hope it'll be extremely binding. This is probably one of the more effective online strategies that's been used, because one of the things in research, at least in the area of online, is they talk about that the pacing, and they talk about different types of strategies that are going to accommodate a wider and more diverse audience. When we look at learning contracts, we're looking at more of a self-paced type of contract. It allows the students to learn at their own pace. So if you had some students that were has specific needs, maybe they were on IEPs or ILEPs, the learning contract might be a good way to be able to allow them to then accomplish the work that you have assigned, and not to fall so far behind. So it's probably going to be one of the more, well, I don't want to, to say it's going to be more difficult, but you could have like several people at different levels. So if you have a class that has 20 to 25 students and everybody has a learning contract, it might be a little bit more difficult to manage that. However, if your class is smaller, so let's say 6 to 10 students, learning contracts might be a viable option with that. And more specifically, if you have students, with special needs, a learning contract would probably be the best way to go, at least in my opinion. The lecture is probably the most frequently, used strategy in more of the adult type of settings. It's effective, as long as it's broken up into activities. I mean, you guys know how I pace the lectures in my courses. I don't like to lecture for a long period of time. I try to break it up with activities, although, as you guys know, it's harder when you have smaller class sizes. It's much more effective, if you have like groups of, if you have a class size of about 10 to 12, and then you can group people in, 3 groups of 3, and then break it into activities. So maybe after the first, 15 minutes, 20 minutes of lecture, break into an activity, bring the groups back together, and then have them share what they come up with. That ideally is what I've done in most of the time I've been teaching. Like I said, it becomes a little more difficult when you are looking at smaller group sizes. The self-directed learning is, it's much like the learning contract in my mind, because you're allowing the student to be able to, to pursue a more personalized, self-paced learning activity mode, as opposed to, the learning contract, which essentially does the same thing. They say they're going to be able to do this, this, and this in a certain amount of time, and then there's the date, the contracted date that says I'll have it done by this date. The only thing that's absent in a self-directing learning strategy is that you don't really impose a specific date. It's kind of implied. The small group work, well, again, that works if you've really got groups that are going to be more cohesive, and you're not going to have ones where you have a more dominant person who won't allow other students to have an equal partnership in the project, because the last thing you want it to look like is the type of diploma mills we talk about in class, where you get groups and then one person is responsible for doing a lot of the work, and that's just because the other people in the group know that person wants to get an A. In this case, you're talking about a K-12 classroom, and those small groups need to be formulated by reviewing very specific things out of your surveys, so that way you have a really good blend of students. The mentorship, I've never used it, and it's just one of the strategies, but it allows you to promote learner development, and you're trying to get what the student already knows. So then I think the major benefit for online is that it's a communication between a student who then has a mentor. So you're pairing them up based on one student having a little bit more knowledge than the other one, and then having that person kind of mentor them. I'm not sure. I think it works really well in the online, but it's a strategy that has been discussed, and I can tell you that I don't know a lot of my colleagues that have used it in K-12. And I don't think they've even used it in the university level, because you just don't see that. But it's one that it's out there, so I just wanted to give you the idea. As far as the case study, well, I like case study, but I think that it's, again, that is going to draw back into the more of the, I think, the group project area, but it can be done individually. It's going to have the students rely on their past experience. It's going to have them link future information. It's the key to it being successful is that you select the appropriate problem that's relevant to both the interest and the experience level of that individual. So you can do that. It works better, I think, in individually, but you can use it in groups. Again, you're going to want to specifically put together students that have enough of the different strengths, and they can pull off of one another to be able to be successful. But you can try that as well. Collaborative learning, well, that's just getting 2 or more students to work together. And again, it's a lot like small groups. Some of these are going to sound very repetitive, so I apologize if they do, but these are strategies that have been successful. So again, somewhat repetitive, and a lot of this stuff that you probably have already used in the past. Forum, now that's just another way of doing a discussion thread. Again, I keep on saying this, these are highly repetitive. The forum looks much like the discussion thread. However, the difference between a forum and a discussion thread is that you will typically have a moderator that is going to be assigned. And I think that is absolutely one of the most successful types of strategies. I've used that many times in my online courses, and I've also used them in the hybrid courses. So those weeks where we're off, and again, you need more than 2 people. So when it's been highly successful in hybrid is when I've had about 10 to 12 people, and then I alternated, having one person be the moderator, and then they were responsible for, answering, questions, making comments, facilitating, the forum. And then, you can put people together in a panel of maybe 3 to 6 and have them present that in class if you're doing a hybrid, or if you're doing a totally online class. You can go ahead and maybe have them use Google Hangouts or Skype, and have them present, their I guess, synthesizing of all the information that's been presented in the thread. It's pretty successful, and I think that the students take ownership of that type of a scenario. So I kind of like the forum over just the discussion, although like I said, there's a lot of similarities. The difference between the discussion and the forum is that the discussion is that, like Rachel and Becky, both of you have made the same comment about the fact that discussion thread, you feel like you post something and then you wait for someone else to respond, and then when they don't respond in a timely fashion, you forget to go back and respond back, so it just becomes more of just a posting thread. That's why the forum is absolutely a more participant driven venue, because the requirements and the expectations are very clear. You have that moderator, you have a panel, and then you have people responsible for making sure that they are facilitating discussion, or if people are kind of off topic or get on a tangent, then you can tell them, well, that's not probably appropriate to this discussion. However, if we just discuss this one item, then maybe we can kind of look at other strategies within whatever they're talking about. So you become a facilitator, the police of the forum, but it does eliminate the fact that people will not, I guess, be absent in that forum. So one of the things that I think would be, I guess, kind of a big plus for it is that if the requirements are very specific, which we've talked about that, and then you have timely, I guess, time frames where people are supposed to be timely responding to whatever the questions are, or if it's just a topic, and they don't, then the moderator can then email people and say, hey, we need more responses, that type of thing. But it is absolutely much more of a participant driven activity, and it eliminates that kind of I guess absenteeism, if you will, which people tend to lose their I guess all of their enthusiasm for it. So let's see. Project, well, that's kind of self-explanatory. If you do, if you assign a project, you can handle that a variety of ways. You could have them present it in, a synchronous time frame. So you could say you have this amount of time to put together this project, and your presentation date will be X, and then they present it, whether you're using Google Hangouts or Skype or some other type of medium. But the project is going to be driven specifically by the dates that you set forth, and then how you do the presentation is just nothing different than when we've done presentations in our class during the last couple weeks of the semester, and you present, you have a specific rubric, the class grades you, so you have that peer type of discussion, and then the peer evaluation. So hopefully those strategies will give you some other options if you hadn't already thought of them. And again, Rachel, I know that you already submitted yours, but if you feel that you want to tweak it based on this additional information, that's perfectly acceptable. Okay, so to wrap this up, it's all trial and error. Not everything works. That's the one thing I can tell you about designing in online classes. I lost count of how many classes I've designed for online, and the one thing I know for certain is that not everything works. Just because it worked in this one class doesn't mean it works in another. There's constant revamping. You can make some on-the-fly adjustments. That's always possible, but as I've said before, it's not the more preferred method, because it's really difficult to make those on-the-fly adjustments when you've already launched the assignment. I mean, think about, okay, I put on the discussion or the announcements page before we went on spring break that I would have my lecture up. The on-the-fly adjustment, was that I just didn't post that because I thought, that it would be better to do it now, and I knew that you two would probably already have your assignments done, but that was okay because I figured by following the the lecture from the week before we went on break, you'd have quite a bit of information, and this way it's a little fresher in our mind. But that was not the greatest on the fly adjustment. So I mean, I'm telling you from my own personal experience that I think that you have to do whatever you're doing with the idea that this is final, and that the adjustments come after the course is completed, and you look at the feedback you've gotten from the students. You look at the things that just didn't work. You kind of smack yourself and go, okay, this didn't work. For me, when I said, and this is again a perfect example, when I said I wanted you guys to view the lecture during spring break, that to me was ridiculous, because what I really wanted you to do was just to take some time off and to kind of get to the end of spring break and then look at this. So you have the best of intentions, and online is not a perfect world. Face to face, there's much more latitude for adjustments, and for that on the fly, just, oh, okay, we're going to do this, we're going to switch gears. So hopefully you guys had a great vacation. I know that I've spent mine doing taxes, so it was fun, kind of relaxing. And yes, Becky, I got your email. I'm going to be finding out specifically about the other course, whether or not there's going to be something else that's going to be offered. And I will get you the permit for the 520, and I'm working on putting together, the courses and matching up what you say you believe you have. So I should have all that for you on Thursday. So again, I hope you guys had a wonderful spring break, and I look forward to seeing everybody on Thursday. Have a great day.